Welcome back to Raised by Giants live discussion. Good to see everyone. Welcome everyone in the chat and any moderators and channel members out there, and to anyone that's listening to the replay. Thanks for joining us. And if you're listening on the audio only on Apple Podcast or Spotify, hello and welcome. A Clockwork Shining is available on Tubi. Anywhere you can download the Tubi app, you can now watch my documentary, A Clockwork Shining, on Tubi. So even if you've seen it already on Amazon Prime or Apple TV Plus, please watch it again on Tubi. It really helps us out as content creators and documentarians and helps fund our future projects, which I have in the works currently. We are currently in pre-production for my latest and newest documentary, which is going to focus on the government psychic spy Stargate program. The link to check out the documentary, A Clockwork Shining, on Tubi is linked to the top of this chat and is also in the description. So today we have a stellar show for you guys. We're going to be talking about everything Jeffrey Epstein and the recent conclusions of the DOJ and the FBI on the Epstein case, and also Trump's remarks on it. And here to discuss with us about it, the host of The Secret Teachings, author, researcher, veteran radio host, good friend of mine, Ryan Gable. Welcome back to the show. How's it going?
It's going well, Ryder. Thank you for having me back on. I think it's been quite a bit of time between our last show and this show.
Yeah, man, it's been like 2 months. I've been trying to get you on for a little bit, but we've had some conflicting schedules. You're all the way in Japan. I think you're a day, aren't you a day ahead of me as well?
Yeah, we're in the future. So whenever we do get the Epstein files, if we do get them, I'll let you know ahead of time.
Thanks for giving me that heads up, dude. Yeah, I'm really flabbergasted by this entire thing, bro. I'm, exclusive. DOJ and FBI conclude Epstein had no client list, died by suicide. Okay, so President Trump's Justice Department and the FBI have concluded they have no evidence that convicted sex offender and disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed powerful figures, kept a client list, or was murdered, according to a memo detailing the findings obtained. The administration is releasing a video in both raw and enhanced version that says it indicates that no one entered the area of the Manhattan prison where Epstein was held the night he died in 2019. Now, supposedly, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think that there's a minute that's missing from this supposed prison video, which we have been told for the past 6 years, Ryan, that there is no video. We've been told that the cameras weren't working at the jail Epstein was held in. Now, all of a sudden, there's video. But the video now has a minute missing, which is like crucial parts to this entire thing.
You summarized it pretty well. I, on the other hand, am not surprised by this, as maybe some of our shared listeners know. I've been saying for quite a long time that not only will you never see the list, but if you ever see anything that is interpreted as the list, it's going to be nothing more than an operation to confuse and to disinform and misinform and mislead the public, which is exactly what that charade was that Pam Bondi pulled, giving those files to a bunch of influencers. Many of them were actually Israeli influencers, or what they called conservative right-wing influencers, many of which were Israeli or Zionists. In fact, one of them posted an image of themselves wearing the Star of David with the files, which were blacked out in part and also had no additional information than what had already been released from court records previous to that. So for me, I'm not confused or really shocked by this at all. In fact, it seems to me like it's part of the playbook. What I am shocked about is that there are so many people that apparently do buy the narrative, despite the fact that this is maybe one of the most blatant and obvious and probably one of the most ridiculous, utterly ridiculous arguments that we've ever seen in terms of cover-ups in government history. I mean, this is nothing compared, or rather the Warren Commission is nothing compared to this, I don't think, because it would be the equivalent of saying that Kennedy, not only was Kennedy not shot, but there's no video evidence of it. The Zapruder film didn't exist. And you've talked about that, of course, and made a documentary on it, and that's a whole other subject we could discuss. But the point is, it would be like saying Kennedy was never killed. We have no evidence that someone shot him. He killed himself in the car, actually. He hung himself in the convertible. That's really the level of, I think, utter absurdity with claiming that there are no files. And it could just simply be, I think this is important, and you and your audience and my audience as well knows this very well. The subject of UFOs and the subject of UAPs and the government saying we have no UFO files, we have UAP files. It might be something similar to that. We don't have an Epstein client list. Maybe they don't have an Epstein client list, but maybe they have a Maxwell client list, or maybe it's a Mossad client list. It could just simply be that they changed the name of it officially or unofficially. Those kinds of things happen quite often. We don't have any UFO files. What are you talking about? UFOs don't exist. Well, what are you talking about these UAPs then? Well, that's a UAP. That's totally different than a UFO. Could be that it's a Maxwell list. Obviously, I think it's overstating the facts that are blatant. But yes, Pam Bondi had said back in February that she had the files on her desk, quote, sitting on my desk. That video has resurfaced. She commented on that next to President Trump, I think, which is the video you're referring to, where Trump got very angry with the reporter for asking. And the White House press secretary also commented on it. The argument was, she said that, and she admits, yes, I said that, but what I really meant was, which to me sounds kind of like, well, sure, we said there were weapons of mass destruction, but what we really meant by that was, where they changed the narrative. Like, God said this in the Bible, but what God really meant was, I'm going to tell you. That's kind of the impression I get from both the White House press secretary and Pam Bondi. And I also think that it's quite interesting that people like Bongino and Patel, who, if anybody has followed my work over the years, know I don't trust either one of these individuals. I never listened to them, I never trusted them. I was never excited for either one of them to be appointed. I thought that both of them were compromised, at least philosophically, perhaps in other capacities, by the Israeli government, by the Mossad. In fact, Bongino was asked what issue is most dear to his heart. He said, well, Israel. And when they asked Kash Patel, similar question, he said Israel should get the top priority. These are the guys that are running the FBI and that are in possession of a, quote, client list that is primarily, not exclusively, but primarily a byproduct of a blackmail operation run by that country that they want to put first. These are their own words and in the video clips and interviews. And it's interesting because Kash Patel's girlfriend, I don't know if you know about this, Kash Patel has a girlfriend who's much younger than him. I don't necessarily have an issue with that. She's about 19 years younger. And I mean, she's legal. She's like 26, I think. And her name is Alexis Wilkins. And it's really peculiar because Alexis Wilkins is a contributor, she's considered like a country music singer, but she's also a contributor to PragerU. I don't know if you know anything about PragerU, but PragerU, you could look this up in live time, Ryder, if you want to show your audience. Type in PRAGERU, PragerU, and type in Marissa Street, MARISSASTREIT. She's the CEO of PragerU that Kash Patel's girlfriend works for. And you'll notice that if you read her bio on their website, it's not a third-party website, it's their website. If you read her bio on the website, it says this: Marissa Street, CEO of PragerU, was born in Los Angeles and moved to Israel at a young age, where she completed her primary education and served in military intelligence, Unit 8200 of the Israeli Defense Force. Not only is she IDF, she's Mossad intelligence, and that's who Kash Patel, his girlfriend, works for. This is the guy that is in possession of the Mossad blackmail client list. You will never see this list ever, 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 ever. And if you do, and I told a friend of mine this years ago, kind of tongue in cheek, if you do see this list in any capacity, which does in any way, shape, or form confirm that there are Israeli spy networks that are far worse than anything you ever imagined back in the 80s with Jonathan Pollard, the worst spy in U.S. history, you will see a global war break out, just like you saw during World War I and World War II as a result of the exposure of the same things happening in Russia by the Tsars and in Germany by the Nazis. And that is a whole nother subject, but I do believe that this is much more than just, oh, it's Mossad, CIA, and British intelligence. No doubt about it, it is. But this is primarily a Mossad Israeli blackmail operation. And that is why virtually the entirety of both political parties, who, if you're on the right, you take money from AIPAC, which has been spying on the United States since its inception. They got caught doing that in the 80s. Charges were dropped against them magically, including Pentagon officials that helped them. That involved Jonathan Pollard, the worst spy in U.S. history. In part, he wasn't part of AIPAC, but he was. But it's part of the same networks. And interestingly enough, that network in the 90s led to Bill Clinton. Say what you want about Bill Clinton, his administration actually investigated it, and we're going after the spies. And this is well-known history. Benjamin Netanyahu in 1997, I believe it was, came up to Bill Clinton, the president of the United States. I can send you the records of this if you want to see it. The mainline news, there's books written on it. He threatened the president in front of Secret Service and everybody and just said, listen, you either call off the hunt for these Israeli spies in your government, or we will release the tapes of you and Monica Lewinsky. That was pretty much it. They said Bill Clinton froze up like a ghost, and then he issued the order later to call off the dog, or the witch hunt, rather, not the dog hunt, but call off the dogs from the witch hunt. And to compound that, I think that this is peculiar. Maybe it means something. The name of that network that was in the United States in the 90s and they believe still exists today was literally called MAGA, M-E-G-A, capital letters. So there is much more insane happening here than just, oh, it's a little bit of British, a little bit of American, a little bit of Israeli. No, it's like 80% Israeli. Yeah,
what did the MAGA stand for back then?
I don't know what MEGA stood for exactly. I've heard different things. It might have been, a code name, just a random series of letters. It could have had a specific meaning. I don't know off the top of my head. But if you type in MEGA, spies, Israel, Newsweek, I think they did a publication on it. You could type it into pretty much any search engine. Should be able to find the link. If you can't, I'll send it to you. But that's just a little taste of it. And that goes back to Kennedy, as a matter of fact, with the American Zionist Committee that the Senate had a hearing on back in 1962, 63, roughly. And within a year of Kennedy being elected, he ordered them, and his brother, the AG, ordered the AZC to identify and register as a foreign entity. They refused to do it. The Senate had hearings. There are thousands and thousands of pages of these Senate hearings. This all relates to Epstein, by the way. Thousands of pages of these documents. I could actually send you a link if you want to see some of them. And those documents show that they actually subpoenaed most of the heads of these big Israeli lobbying groups, including the AZC. They went through the subpoenas. They interviewed these people. They got all the records of what they were doing. And that Senate investigation and the orders of the Kennedys, they tried to force the AZC to register. So instead of registering, the AZC just transformed into AIPAC. And within 5 years of forming into AIPAC and not registering, they got tax exemption status from the IRS. And then after getting tax exemption status, they started which was totally illegal. They started collecting as a spy network information and documents on American government officials, which led to the 1980s when AIPAC officially, and there's a not Wall Street Journal, a Washington Post story that actually broke this in the mid 80s, a Washington Post story where they identified that one of the leads of the AIPAC organization, the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, they literally in the 80s directed all of their associate organizations in the US to start dumping money into the campaigns of both Republican and Democrat candidates for public office in order to control those candidates. And they did that with anybody and everybody that would take the money. And that was in the 80s. And around that time that was exposed, that's when Jonathan Pollard was eventually caught. He served a lot of time in prison. Benjamin Netanyahu actually came to visit him in prison. Funny how the worst convicted spy in American history, they allowed visits from the prime minister of the country he was spying for. That was at the prison that he was at. And then when he got out of prison, get this, he got out of prison. How did he get back to Israel? Well, a guy named Sheldon Adelson, the magnate, the casino magnate, billionaire, gave him a private jet to fly back to Israel. That's the same Sheldon Adelson who himself was flown to Israel after he died and buried because he pledged his allegiance to Israel. That's the same Sheldon Adelson, whose wife is still alive, Miriam Adelson, who gave Trump $100 million last year after he gave her the Golan Heights, and they named part of it Trump Heights. This is a much more interconnected web than people think and people might assume, and it has a lot more to do with Israel than what some people are leading on, because it's a little scary to suggest that due to all the assassinations and buy-offs and those magical charms called anti-Semitism, which doesn't mean a damn thing at all. But anyway, that's my assessment of it. I think that our government is virtually entirely controlled since the 1980s by blackmail. And in fact, as a separate note to finish and conclude my statements here, I don't know if you knew this, but all the way back, we're talking going way back. We're talking going back to like the 1930s, where you had some of the mafia in the United States, which used blackmail, was primarily comprised of two different groups. It was comprised of Italians and Sicilians. And there was there's Russian mafia, there's other mafia, of course, but there were primarily Italians and Sicilians, mostly Italians, I think, although the specifics of that are, of course, important, and Jews. It's a fact. The mafia was primarily Jewish and Italian. An Italian came up with the idea for the syndicate, which has been used in movies, and you've probably seen documentaries on that before. And that was run about a 50-50 split down the middle by Jews and Italians. And there's actually a book written about this, that they used blackmail, particularly blackmail on Hoover, the FBI director, funny enough, in order to carry out their criminal activities, which is why Hoover famously, I don't know the exact statement, if we can say that it's 100% accurate what he said, but he reportedly had said that the mafia didn't exist. Which is literally what they're doing now with Epstein.
Yep.
Hoover had said that it doesn't exist. Why? Because he was blackmailed by the Jewish mafia, well, also the Italian mafia, but the Jewish mafia.
Yeah, they didn't even want to admit that the mafia existed until basically the mafia had disbanded and become like public corporations, and they kind of like went legit and started filing their taxes properly and saving people money in the mail rooms and everything. That's pretty much exactly what happened, is that they stopped kind of moving in the shadows, this boogeyman that's like out on the streets, and they just became large corporations.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, that's a large part of it. In fact, the mafia, through their tactics in the 30s, were able to get control of a lot of corporations and companies through blackmail, through intimidation, through fraud, through, in some cases, murder. In fact, there's a I'm trying to think of the guy's name off the top of my head. He was a big mafia member. What was the guy's name? I can't remember exactly. I think it was Samuel Levine. He worked for Meyer Lansky, which was one of the guys who blackmailed Hoover, and Charles Luciano, and Meyer
Lansky literally started a lot of this stuff, dude.
Yeah.
He would literally film people in two-way mirrors doing all kinds of crazy shit. He was like one of the first Epstein people.
Yeah, this is exactly, this grew out of the mostly Jewish, but also largely Italian mafia. This is exactly what they were doing then. It's exactly what they're doing now. And don't get me wrong, it's not just Mossad, it's not just Israel. Yes, the CIA is very involved. I mean, Midnight Climax was one of those operations in San Francisco where they would video people behind those mirrors. That was more recently. And they would get them with prostitutes or whatever, drugs, etc., and they would use it to blackmail them. I mean, they did this with Larry King, the conservative, which was part of the Franklin scandal, which involved children. This was part of numerous Epstein-like cases that I guess all just kind of conveniently get forgotten, that just kind of get left out of the conversation. And then the whole thing gets written off like the mafia was by Hoover, or the mob was by Hoover, and it gets written off like the Epstein client list. But anyway, the point is this, I think this gives you a pretty clear picture of what you're dealing with here. Not only are you dealing with people that are, well, obviously ruthless, but some of them have kind of like a code. And this particular mobster, Samuel Levine, he would not. He was an assassin. He killed lots and lots of people. He was actually said to be the lead assassin in Charles Luciano's Murder Inc. company. And he said that he would assassinate anybody for any reason as long as they weren't Jewish, but he would not assassinate people on the Sabbath. So he took a day of rest from murdering people. And it's interesting because that means that he was a devout Jew. His Judaism didn't prevent him from murdering non-Jews for the mob. It just prevented him from murdering non-Jews on the Sabbath. And I think that gives you a pretty clear idea of the kind of psychopathy you're dealing with here. And in particular, the religious psychopathy or the zealotry that say what you want about Muslims, say what you want about Christians. That's all well and fine and acceptable. But if you point any of this out, well, suddenly that makes you a really bad person. And we don't need to get into the specifics of that, but all of these things are a fact, from Levine to Lansky and the rest of the people that were in the mafia then as now, and they use the same tactics. And I just to confirm this point and beat it home, Hoover did not acknowledge the existence of the mob and said it did not exist. This is exactly what the Trump administration, and hey, if it would have been Harris, it'd be the same thing. This is exactly what the Harris administration would have done too. There is no Jeffrey Epstein client list. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if tomorrow they say there was no Jeffrey Epstein and there was no Ghislaine Maxwell. They don't exist. Why are you still talking about it? The same thing.
I think more people need to look into Meyer Lansky and everything that he was doing, because again, he was, he brought a gun and a camera into a group of people and was like, hey, which one of these is more powerful? Everyone pointed to the gun.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no. It's the camera. And he used that camera to blackmail literally anybody that he needed to blackmail, which is again all a part of Project Midnight Climax, which was an MK Ultra type of program.
Yes,
now, it's just so interesting how, like, if Epstein didn't have a client list, then why did he kill himself? Okay.
Why is Maxwell in prison?
Why is Maxwell in prison serving a 20-year sentence or something like that for something that there's no proof of? Like, it really doesn't make any type of sense, but you're 100% right. It's exactly like the J. Edgar Hoover thing. There is no mob. There is none of this. But I did kind of hold out a little bit of hope, because Trump did say that he was going to release the JFK files. He said that he was going to release the RFK files. He said he was going to release the Martin Luther King Jr. files, which those two haven't come to pass yet. But he did release the JFK files. So I was like, okay, maybe we'll see something. And then we kind of got that bombshell thing that everyone kind of forgot about because of the LA riots, right? Which was Elon Musk in that tweet saying with Trump and his feud with Elon, was like, Trump is in the Epstein files. That's why all this is going on, which was really a big bombshell, because he has said several times that he never went to the island. Actually, that's even in the Lex Friedman podcast here. Let's play this clip really quick. I think this is really telling here.
There's a moment where you had some hesitation about Epstein, releasing some of the documents on Epstein. Why the hesitation?
And I got to let YouTube know that this is covered under fair use, because we are commenting on the Lex Friedman podcast with Donald Trump in late 2024, and this is letting you know that this is covered under fair use because we are educating the public on what was said between Trump and Lex Friedman regarding the Jeffrey Epstein.
I don't think I'm not involved. I never went to his island, fortunately, but a lot of people did.
Why do you think so many smart, powerful people allowed him to get so close?
He was a good salesman. He was, was a hale and hearty type of guy. He had some nice assets that he'd throw around, like islands. But a lot of big people went to that island.
A lot of big people, Ryan. A lot of big people.
But fortunately, I was not one of them.
It's just very strange for a lot of people that the list of clients that went to the island has not been made public.
Okay, this is really interesting here, Ryan, because here he's basically confirming that there is a list
Mhm.
right here.
Yeah, it's very interesting, isn't it? Probably will be, by the way. Probably.
So if you're able to, you'll be.
Yeah, I'd certainly take a look at it. Now, Kennedy's interesting because it's so many years ago. You know, they do that for danger too, because, you know, endangers certain people, et cetera, et cetera. So Kennedy is very different from the Epstein thing. But yeah, I'd be inclined to do the Epstein. I'd have no problem with it.
That's great to hear.
So there he's basically confirming that there is a list, and now there is no list. This was just earlier in 2024. This was like right before the election. He was saying, and now he's in a press conference saying, "Why are you talking about Epstein? You're still talking about that guy?" Okay, let's listen to that video really quickly before I get your thoughts.
Jeffrey Epstein, it left some lingering mysteries. One of the biggest ones is whether he ever worked for a American or foreign intelligence agency. The former labor secretary, who was Miami U.S. Attorney Alex Acosta, he allegedly said that he did work for an intelligence agency. So could you resolve whether or not he did? And also, could you say why there was a minute missing from the jailhouse tape on the night of the stabbing?
Yeah, sure. If
Hey,
I
Pam,
could,
could I just interrupt for
Sure.
1 second? Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein?
Are you still talking about Jeffrey Epstein, Ryan? Come on, bro. That guy is old news, dude. Old news.
Yeah, don't bring up the Epstein files because they have compromised my entire administration.
Don't
I
bring
wanna talk
those
about
up. Can't talk about that. You guys are still talking about that? What's going on?
This guy's been talked about for years. You're asking, we have Texas, we have this, we have all of the things. And are people still talking about this guy, this creep? That is unbelievable. Do you want to wait?
Unbelievable, Ryan. Unbelievable that you would bring up Jeffrey Epstein whenever I said earlier, later in 2024, that I would release the Epstein files and the client list actually exists. And you guys want me to follow through with that? What's wrong with you, Ryan?
Instead, and I think this is a very key point. Instead, people like Pam Bondi have directed her Department of Justice to do two things that I find very peculiar. Number one, she's directed her Department of Justice to go after Washington state officials, which I'm not a fan of because it's a liberal nightmare in Washington, but Washington state officials who have signed a law that makes it a requirement for priests who know that a child is being abused or trafficked, etc., to report that to the authorities, as if at this point that would even matter anyway. But she's directed her Department of Justice to go after those people behind that law and to go after any priest who does report children being trafficked or children being abused. That's a really telling little piece of information. The second thing is she's also directed her Department of Justice, alongside of various executive orders from Donald Trump, to go after and fight against all forms of, quote, anti-Semitism, which in this particular context mean having an opinion, criticizing Israel, being opposed to war, asking questions. That's how they define anti-Semitism. In fact, they define it based on the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance website, which literally defines it as reading the Bible is anti-Semitism. So if you read the Bible and you know the Bible, then that makes you an anti-Semite. See, the word doesn't really mean anything. It applies to anybody who's an enemy of this kosher mafia, is how I term it. And Pam Bondi has done that. She's backed that. In fact, there's more evidence of that in the fact that when you could watch the video of this, she was talking about all that child, video material that was really awful and horrible. Remember that video where she said they've just got terabytes of this stuff, 14 terabytes, all this horrible stuff.
She mentions it in this right here when she's getting ready to speak, that it was just a bunch of child porn that was there. That's it. Well, how did that get there? Okay, most people that have child porn they filmed it in some way or another, or they had something to do with it, or they were involved.
And if you watch that video, I don't know if you have it to play, but if you watch that video, and this is admittedly, this is my opinion. This is my perception of this woman when she speaks. But if you compare that video of her talking about the child material, if you compare that to her response to those 2 embassy aides being shot in Washington, there's no comparison. Like there's no relationship. They're completely different Pam Bondis. When she's and you again go verify this for yourself. Go watch it as a listener if you don't believe what I'm saying. It is my opinion, but you can clearly see there's a different tone in her voice and a different look on her face. When she is talking about that child video material, she is borderline smiling about it. She is like, it's just this and that and this and that, and it's like, oh yeah. But when it's about the 2 Jewish embassy aides being shot, she is crying or just got done crying. Her face is extremely distraught. We'll just look at the body language. And she is verbally shaking and saying, these people are going to be held to the highest extent of the law. We're going to prosecute them and to the highest. And she's very like frantic about it. I mean, that just like with the going after the pedophile reports in Washington, and just like making sure that people don't have the right to criticize a foreign government. This woman, and I said this before Trump took office, and I got fired from my radio job at the time because of it. One of the reasons, this woman is completely and wholly and absolutely corrupted by both the ideology of Zionism and by whatever blackmail or whatever psychological thing that they have over this woman. She is completely the puppet of a foreign government. She is not an American, and she is guilty, as far as I'm concerned, of treason. And so are all the other people in this administration who have engaged in this, from Bongino to Patel. And you and your audience and me might all scuffle on this issue in particular, but I think Trump has committed treason, high treason. I think the entire administration, including the Biden administration, I think they've all committed treason. And that brings us really to the core issue here. Is that if that file list ever actually came out and you saw the names on it, you saw these people that fight with each other and pretend to be on other sides of the political aisle, and you see that they all agree on one thing, and that is doing really bad stuff to get power, there would be no United States government. The whole government would come down. There would be very few exceptions. There'd be no, people are like, well, we got to prosecute these people. Who's going to prosecute them? The attorneys and the judges that were also involved, if not with Epstein, with some other blackmail honeypot operation? Who's going to put them in jail and hold them in jail? The prisons that apparently and clearly are just as compromised as the people that they hold? Who's going to arrest them? The police that are just as equally involved? The whole entire system is corrupt to the core. And the only people that speak out against it objectively are people like, there's very few of them, but one of them is Thomas Massie. And I don't know if you saw this about Thomas Massie. Thomas Massie has spoken about this. And now the Republican Jewish, I think they're called the Republican Jewish Committee, has worked with the Trump administration to create the largest PAC in, I think they said it might be the largest PAC ever. And they've pledged, quote, this is a quote, unlimited money to defeating Thomas Massie, one of the only members of Congress who is not involved in this, who has not taken money from AIPAC, and who is not compromised and blackmailed by this foreign cult or this kosher mafia. And they've pledged unlimited money. The question of where they get that money is a separate issue. Unlimited money, a blank check to defeat and destroy not only the political career of Thomas Massie, but also his reputation as an American and as a human being. That is exactly what the mafia does, except this is a lot more aggressive than anything Meyer Lansky or any of these guys have done in the past. This is aggressive IDF style tactics, where I don't know if you know about the IDF, but they are so brutal. This is Los Angeles Times mainstream news since the 80s. The IDF is so brutal, and the intelligence operatives of Israel are so brutal that Mexican drug cartels, South American, Colombian drug cartels, not only do they get their weapons from Israel, they get training from Israel. In fact, Israel actually trains most U.S. police departments on how to handle certain situations, which is why police tactics have become so brutal. And they actually, the IDF and Israeli operatives literally, I can send you the articles, LA Times, they literally train Colombian drug cartel death squads how to kill people better and how to better dispose of the bodies. That would be like going to Michael Jordan or Kobe Bryant or LeBron James and explaining to them, let me show you how to really play basketball. That puts these people in a whole different category. It makes them a different kind of monster that is separate from all the other horrible people that have existed on this planet and done horrible things to society and to kids and to civilization. These people are monsters on a different wavelength. And that is the kind of ideology and the kind of behavior that is behind what we're seeing. It's not just standard corruption. It is absolute, pure, unfiltered evil. And Pam Bondi is a part of it. Kash Patel's girlfriend literally works for an intelligence operative of Israel and the Mossad. Bongino, I think, is largely compromised by his ideology. And if you listen to people like Pete Hegseth, this guy is not only a religious zealot, he wants a physical military crusade against the entire Islamic world. He's a complete and utter psychopath. And this is what we call America First and the golden age of America. It's not. It's the golden age of Israel, if it's the golden age of anything. But I don't think that this even is America. This is our government occupied by a foreign government, and they don't have to fire a shot, usually a couple assassinations. They don't have to fire a shot, though. They just do it through blackmail, compromise, and religious zealotry, which, one last note, was not really a thing until like the 1960s. Religious zealotry and the Holocaust and convincing people that they had to support Israel wasn't a big deal. Norman Finkelstein, the Jewish author, he points this out, that Israel wasn't really an ally until the 6 Days War, which is around the time they also attacked the USS Liberty. But they weren't an ally until like the 60s. That's when you started to see the Holocaust propaganda roll out. That's when you started to see Christians have their minds changed to, oh, we got to support Israel. That's when the propaganda started to roll out. Because if you go back before that, Christians hated these people. They expelled them from England, France, it was France too, Portugal, Spain, the largely Orthodox Russian Tsarist leadership going back to Catherine the Great expelled the Jews in like the 1790s. And then Tsar Nicholas I wrote his own version of Mein Kampf in the 1830s, 100 years before Hitler published Mein Kampf, roughly. Tsar Nicholas I wrote his own and explaining the exact same thing that we're talking about tonight. This is a universal thing. Christians hated these people, and now they love them because of the propaganda that goes alongside of the blackmail. And I'm not sorry to say it. This is official mainline history if you have the balls and the spine to read it and to say it out loud, and also to read in between the lines. It's what it is. I'm not part of any movement. I'm not a white supremacist, whatever the hell that means. I'm not an anti-Semite. I don't hate Arabs. They're Semites. I am a human being. I'm a historian. And the facts are what the facts are. Do with them what you will. That's my opinion.
Huey says the police investigate themselves all the time and find no wrongdoing.
Absolutely.
They do, and that's exactly what the FBI and the DOJ just did. Oh, well, let's conduct this investigation.
Yep.
And we'll conduct an investigation on ourselves, by ourselves, and we find out that there is no Epstein client list, and he died by suicide. He killed himself.
What was that Martin Lawrence movie, Big Mama's House? Where I think that was the movie. There's a line in that movie where one of the people say, or maybe it's not Big Mama's House. Maybe it was Bad Boys. But there's a woman in the movie that says, "I'll tell you how to find a dirty cop. Just pick up the phone and call the police station. Don't really matter who answers." And even the good people, they're compromised by it, because how many people do you know, Ryder? How many people are listening right now that just, they go to work, they listen to shows like this, they don't really have any involvement in politics or making public comments, or even public comments in terms of platforms like this, but even public comments in their own life. How many people know what I'm saying is accurate and true and don't want to say anything because they're terrified of being labeled? I think a lot of people. In fact, I know a lot of people in the radio industry that know all of this. And in fact, I bring it up to them in private and they know more than me about it, but they'll never address it on air. They'll never talk about it with other colleagues. I know probably half a dozen radio people that know all of this. And there's a reason for that. If you get at the reason of that, then you can understand what this mafia really is, what they do, and how everything that you think that you know about history is largely a lie. That doesn't make the other side of history right. It just means that it's all been a lie. Not, I would say, entirely, but the key points have been distorted to change our perceptions of reality, whether it's the mafia or it's the mafia now.
I think that if we were having this conversation, I don't know, even like a year ago,
Mhm.
it would be a lot different. But I mean, there's been so much that's come out about this, dude. And I mean, Kanye West has a whole song about it.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, he does. Well, see,
You know, like,
but see, I want to add one. Can I add a statement to that? I think I don't particularly like that song because I don't like the glorification of people. I don't like the glorification of Trump. I didn't like the glorification of Obama, and I don't like the glorification of Hitler. It doesn't matter if Hitler was a good guy, bad guy, or a middle of the road guy. I don't like the glorification of people, but that sentiment is actually what got me started in talking about this more than I ever have in the past, because I've discussed the Israeli thing and the Jewish thing since I started radio. But it's the movement toward, I'll try to keep this comment short. It's the movement toward that, Kanye West song that I think is a really big, dangerous enemy on the horizon, because that enemy is going, in terms of like an image, that enemy, that attitude, that idea is going to result in not only common everyday people that are Jews being persecuted, it's going to eventually spread, as any authoritarian system does, to everybody being persecuted. And let me give you one quick example of what I mean by that. If you study what King Edward I did in England, 1290, and you read what Catherine the Great did in the 1790s, and then what multiple czars after her did, they all listed the same exact reasons, the same in Portugal, same in Spain, the same reasons that Jews were removed from society. They were influence peddlers, they controlled the press, they controlled the banks, people were starving, people were homeless, people were unemployed. And as a result of that, people were suffering. And when they looked at the people who had all the money and all the power, many of them not only were Jewish, but they were also illegally in the country. They were not citizens of the country, or which was particularly true in Germany, or they were people that were alien in a different way. They were alien in the sense that they refused to assimilate to the culture. In fact, Tsar Nicholas I specifically stated that the reason that they had to remove Jews from Russia was because the Jews refused to assimilate collectively. And he said that it was their cursed book, is a quote, cursed book, the Talmud. He said that it was because of their, quote, terrible religion that they refused and were unable to assimilate to the culture. In fact, Tsar Nicholas even gave rabbis a chance to learn Russian. And the rabbis, most of them rejected that. And the few that took those tests could not pass them. And so because you couldn't pass the test, because you couldn't speak Russian, because you controlled everything, you weren't Russian, you weren't part of the community, they saw, and just like Hitler saw, they saw this as a right to remove these people from society. And when they tried to remove them, of course, back then, we don't know exactly what was said because we don't have the kind of information we do today. But I imagine, based on what we saw in the 30s, it was probably pretty similar to what we saw in the 30s and what we see today. You try to remove illegals from your country, and it's, you hate the immigrants, you hate the Mexicans, you hate the Chinese. And back then it would have been, and we see this historically in historical records, you hated the Jews. Did anybody ever stop to ask why people hated Jews? No, they didn't stop to ask that. Doesn't mean I hate Jews. It just means, why did all these people do the exact same thing and give the exact same reasons? There was a specific, unified, and universal reasoning behind it. And the same thing happened with the mafia in the 30s. The same thing going through the 40s, 50s, and 60s happened today. And instead of learning about any of that, what do you learn about? You learn about Hitler had a weird, member. And you learn about how the mafia is Italian. And you think Tony Soprano. And you think all these movies. You think, I mean, even hell, I'm ranting, I'll stop. But, even Superman. Superman came out in 1938. The company that published it was started by a Gentile. 2 Jews took the company over, and within 1 year of taking it over, they published the first Superman comic. Superman was presented as a hero of immigrants, a hero not just of immigrants, but of ultimately illegal immigrants, to encourage people to believe that Germany expelling illegal immigrants who were primarily Jewish was a horrible thing, and that Superman himself was a symbol of the Jewish heroes who were going to stop the evil German Nazis. And this was before the quote Holocaust.
I also think that the first edition of Superman was Superman beating up Hitler, I believe.
I don't know that for sure, but that does sound familiar. Perhaps that is the
Punching Hitler in the face or something.
perhaps that is the case at all. In fact, the new movie coming out, I just saw a report that it is specifically about immigration, which is exactly what it was about in 1938 as well.
Bro, can these people keep their politics out of movies and TV shows for like 1 second, dude? Like, give me a break, bro.
Well, that's the whole thing. It's just about perception management. And the people that think, hey, this doesn't have anything to do with Epstein, you're wrong. This has everything to do with Epstein. It's perception management. I mean, let me ask you this question. You think about the mafia, most people think about Italians. You think of Godfather, you think of Sopranos, you think of Goodfellas, you think of Italians, maybe you think of Sicilians. But the mafia was not only Italian, and in fact, it was split down the middle between Italians and Jews at the very top of the main organized crime families. What do you think about when you think about pedophilia in the United States? You think about Jews? No, you think about Christians. You think about the church. You think about the Catholics, right? Yeah. You ever seen the movie Spotlight?
No.
The movie Spotlight it's based on a true story about the Boston Globe and their investigation into pedophiles in Boston. And the thing is, who authorized the Boston Globe to report on that? A guy named Martin Barron, who was a Jewish editor, who said, let's expose these Christian pedophiles. Go do the investigation. That can be found from the Boston Globe to Superman to Warner Brothers publishing movies back in the late 1930s about how evil Hitler was before Hitler ever had the moniker that he has today. It's about perception management. And if you control the majority of the media, if you control the majority of in the case of extremist politics, the revolutionary groups, then you control the whole system. You control people's perception. You control the political movements. The two main people that are opposed to Donald Trump are what? They're it's a Jewish couple, Greenberg and Levin. They started Indivisible. And then, of course, if you control all the banks, you control all the money. You don't have to control the world. You just control the key positions of power through nepotism and cronyism. And if you do that, then you control people's perception of the world. And controlling people's perception of the world is a lot more powerful than controlling the world, because through perception management comes control of reality. And I think that's the true, quote, conspiracy here. And frankly, I don't even necessarily think that it's a conscious conspiracy. I think it's a byproduct of a religious and theological dogma. It's a byproduct of a theological cult mentality, the idea that we are chosen by God and we have a right to rule over everybody. In fact, the Talmud says that specifically. When the Messiah comes, everybody else will be slaves to the Jews. It says that in their own book. Doesn't mean that it's true, but if people learn that growing up, that's what they believe, and that's how their entire life proceeds forward. And I think that's really the key core message here, and it relates directly to the Epstein operation, because it's not just that Epstein was this or that. It's that what Epstein represents is the standard mode of operation. It's what they've always done, and I don't mean they as in Jews. I mean it's what they've always done as the mafia. It's what organized crime has always done. It's nothing new, and as we said with Hoover, it's nothing new to deny that it exists, because the people investigating it are compromised by the people they're investigating. It's as simple as that, and that's why you shouldn't be surprised that there's no client list.
All right, let's finish up this video real quick.
Time, and do you feel like answering?
I don't mind answering.
I mean, I can't believe you're asking a question on Epstein at a time like this where we're...
At a time like this, Ryan, why would you ask a question about Epstein, bro?
I mean, like when we're in all these political conflicts, like when they bombed Iran just a few days after Musk said he's in the list.
And the LA riots, which everyone has just forgot about. And Elon Musk deleted that tweet now. You can't find that tweet on his page. He deleted it.
Yeah, I saw that he deleted it.
Having some of the greatest success and also tragedy with what happened in Texas. It just seems like a desecration, but you go ahead.
Sure. First, to back up on that, in February, I did an interview on Fox, and it's been getting a lot of attention because I said, I was asked a question about the client list, and my response was...
Here it is. Here's what she's saying. My response was, I said one thing, but I meant something completely different.
It's not what I meant.
I'm playing word magic.
It's sitting on my desk to be reviewed, meaning the file along with the JFK, MLK files as well. That's what I meant by that. Also, to the tens of thousands of video, they turned out to be child porn downloaded by that disgusting Jeffrey Epstein. Child porn is what they were. Never going to be released, never going to see the light of day. To him being an...
Okay, so...
Did you notice that the hint of shudder in her voice?
When she said that?
Yeah, it sounds as if her voice, I mean, just from like a body language perspective, it sounds like her voice is kind of shuddering, almost in an uncertainty, as if what she's saying is kind of scripted and she doesn't actually believe it. I'm just saying from like a vocal recognition or a body language point of view.
Yeah, I think that they should look into if the child videos are who made the child videos. You know, like
who made them, who's in them.
Yeah, who made them? Where are the kids? Like, come on, bro. Come on, dude.
Well, doesn't that also completely negate the initial question? The question is, and the report, I don't know if the reporter came back and said this, but the question is, you said you had the files. Now you claim that you didn't have the files. And what she says in response is, that's not what I meant. There's a bunch of child material that we can't release. It's like, well, that wasn't the question. I understand that there's material you can't release. No one's asking to see the child material. Okay. What we're asking is, you said you had the list of names. I don't care about the videos. I want to know about the names of the people that were in the videos. And nobody seems to follow up with that question. In fact, what she said is very similar to what the press secretary said too. I don't know if you watched that press conference, Ryder, but the press secretary said something similar. The reporter asked her about it. And she said, well, that's not what Pambani actually meant. And it doesn't matter because we're running an operation to put other sexual molesters in prison. We've got Operation XX, whatever it was, and we're going after the people that are really bad. It's like they ignore the question and then divert to something totally different to make themselves look like heroes. We can't release that video. That's horrible material. We can't show you that. Oh, we're doing some other arrests though, even though we're not going to arrest any of these people that are involved. I mean, this shows you how corrupt and how compromised these people are. It's not really shocking ultimately, but in a way it is a little bit shocking. I'll admit it's a little bit shocking that so many people like this are compromised. Who's in control of it all, man? I don't know who controls all this.
Well, we just watched the video of him on Lex Friedman at the end of 2024 saying that like all these powerful people are on the list. Okay, so
do you think that I'll give you my opinion, give me your opinion. I think that they've blackmailed Trump, not with the list. I think they blackmailed Trump with several things. They've blackmailed him or threatened him with assassination attempts that all happened to align up when Alex Karp threatened war with Iran. That's the Palantir company. And I think Trump took that bait and he took the money from Adelson. I think they essentially blackmailed him through the court cases, dropping all of those charges against him, letting him walk back into the White House if he'll fulfill their agenda. Frankly, I think they threatened his entire family. This is my opinion. I'm pretty sure Israel has threatened acts of terrorism against the United States like 9/11 if he doesn't play ball. And I think he knows that the next in line to president is who? J.D. Vance, the guy that was put into power by Palantir creator Peter Thiel, who basically through Alex Karp, who now runs the company, they control they're making databases on every American. They're using it to track protesters, people that criticize Israel, and they used it to bomb Iran, as well as they're using it to kill people in Gaza. Trump knows you either do what we tell you to do, or J.D. Vance is going to be the next president, and he'll follow orders because he's completely a puppet. So you can be a hero and collect your Nobel Peace Prize, but if you step out of line, then J.D. Vance is going to fill your position. That's my opinion. What do you think?
I mean, but what are you supposed to do in that scenario, dude? Like, when they threaten you and they threaten your life, I mean, they already tried to kill him twice. They threaten your family's life. Like, what are you supposed to do in that scenario? They've literally thrown everything at him, everything at the wall, dude. Court cases, suing him, trying to kill him. You know what I mean? Like there's only so much that one person can take until you eventually fold. I mean, he only has what? I mean, this is July. He's been 7 months into the presidency. You know, like it's his last term. You know, it's like I mean, I don't know what people thought was actually going to happen. Like, I still think it's a better scenario than having Kamala in as president, but still, I wasn't like all this stuff is going to change in like a blink of an eye. I mean, there's been too much corruption for too freaking long, dude. It's you can't put the lid back on it now unless everything gets destroyed, unless everything collapses. There's no fixing any of this.
You'd have to reelect every member of Congress almost, or at least reelect a new member of Congress for everybody that's in
You would
Congress.
have to dismantle every single thing of government and then rebuild it from scratch. And I think that is a big reason why Elon Musk he like stepped out, which was a whole thing with him like having that black eye or whatever, and people in the black eye club or whatever, his last day in the White House. I was under the impression in the beginning, whenever Elon was endorsing Trump and basically got him the election, I believe, which there was a lot of factors, a lot of things happened in order for him to win. But I was under the impression that Elon was going to be in the White House for the duration of Trump's presidency. I thought that that's how it was going to be. So I was kind of taken back whenever they were all of a sudden out of nowhere, out of the blue, like, this is Elon's last day with Doge and last day in the White House. I'm like, what is going on here? And it seems like that he found out that nothing was really going to change, right? That he wanted to actually cut government waste and government spending. He wanted to figure out all this stuff. I mean, he was on Joe Rogan and he was like, listen, if I go too far and I'm ruffling too many feathers, they're going to kill me.
Well, if you think about
They're
it,
going to kill me, bro. Like, I can't go down this deep of a rabbit hole in this shit, or they're going to kill me. So I feel like that he realized that on the face of this, there's only so much that Trump can actually do. And he is doing things like some of the things that the public really care about. And that's like the face of it, you know, like, let's get rid of the illegal immigration. Let's shut the borders. Let's do no tax on tips, blah, 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 to get people to shut up for a little bit, right? All the while the really big main issues are still running in the background that are never going to be solved. Okay. And I think Elon figured that out quickly and was like, okay, this isn't going to change. There's nothing about this is going to change. And that's when he got all big and mad about the big, beautiful bill, as Trump calls it, because it's the largest, biggest government spending. What is it, $17 trillion or something on the bill? So it's like, and that's why Elon's mad, because he's like, listen, there's nothing that, like, Trump isn't going to really change these big issues and these big problems. I'm out.
I agree with the latter from a personal perspective. I don't think that the whole world is a giant conspiracy and that everything's totally controlled. So I do think that people have their own opinions and have their own and make their own decisions to some extent. And I think that Elon Musk as an individual, as a person, does probably believe those things. This is my opinion. However, I do believe that Musk is motivated by the introduction of what he believes to be the next stage of human and maybe even American evolution. And that is transforming the government into a technocracy. And that's part of the, quote, big, beautiful bill, putting the 10-year moratorium on AI restrictions in states, essentially stripping away states' rights, totally illegal. And everybody seemed to be, with a few exceptions, down for that. Most people signed the bill without even reading it, like Marjorie Taylor Greene said. So the point is, Elon Musk, I think maybe on a personal level feels that way. And maybe there is some element of feud on a personal level. But I think Trump and Musk's feud is about as fake, or rather as about as real as Netanyahu and Trump's feud. I don't know if you remember me telling you this, but I said at the beginning, I said, this is a fake feud, and it's all about making Israel and the US seem like they're in opposition so that they can stage the war with Iran. And that turned out to literally be what happened. And I think that the thing with Musk is also part of that, because guess what? Musk is gone, but his ideology remains. What is the Trump administration doing? They're working with Palantir to create a massive database of every citizen in the country. And they're using the issue of immigration as an argument and an excuse for that. And then on top of that, the first thing Trump announced when he got into office was not, hey, here's the Epstein file. Here's the MLK file. The first thing he mentioned in office was Stargate, where he brought in a bunch of technocrats and said, let's design universal COVID vaccines, universal cancer vaccines, DNA altering technology, etc. So Musk doesn't have to be there for his agenda to be carried out. It's maybe, if there's a feud, it's really about who is going to control the technocracy, more so than about where the country is going to head from a non-technocratic stance or non-technocratic point of view. Does that make sense? Because I think it doesn't really matter where Musk is. It's the same agenda.
No, it makes sense, but I don't think that that's a smart play. If it is a fake feud, I don't believe that it's a smart play, because that's showing like chinks in the armor, right? It's of the entire administration, because in the beginning it was, RFK together with Trump, together with Tulsi Gabbard, together with Elon Musk and Hulk Hogan and Kid Rock. You know what I mean? And then, but now they're like, it's like become like this, which Elon did take a lot of heat and a lot of flack. I mean, I think one of the Tesla warehouses in Colorado, like right outside of Fort Collins, was like bombed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and if anything, it's to save face with the Democrats and liberals. I think,
yes.
to get people to
Yes.
quit trashing his vehicles and quit trying to burn down his facilities.
Well, yeah, that I agree with that sentiment. In fact, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the Congressman Carter Glass, who introduced the Federal Reserve Act back in 1913. And when this was introduced, I mean, at the time, newspapers were a lot more credible and actually reported on things. Information wasn't as widely available, but people were a hell of a lot more intellectual in 1913 than they are today in the United States in a lot of ways. Hygiene and all that might not have been the same, but at least they were more, the average person was more informed if they were involved in Washington or if they were in New York City, those particular areas. And when Carter Glass introduced that bill, guess who opposed it? It wasn't the people that were reading it and saying, hey, this is really, we don't want to give the banks control of all this. The people opposing it were the people that gave it to Carter Glass to introduce it, because the public hated the bankers, just like they did in Russia, hated the bankers. So the bankers couldn't outright say, hey, we want you to cram this into the congressional docket. Carter Glass took it, introduced it independently, and then they passed it on what amount? I think it was like December 23rd, December 24th. It's like it was Christmas break, so it was like Christmas Eve, when virtually nobody was there. And the public was told the bankers hate this. All the articles, bankers don't want this bill. The Federal Reserve Act, it's horrible. The bankers don't want it. But they were the ultimate backers of it. They wrote it on J.P. Morgan's private island. So they call it The Creature from Jekyll Island, that famous book. And that kind of display of gaslighting and psychological manipulation, I think, is at the heart of what we're discussing. It's at the heart of the Musk story, the Epstein story, the Trump story. I think that just like there's a president's club, and all the presidents, no matter what they agreed or disagreed on, they all get together, they shake hands, they take pictures, they have dinner. It's like WWE. It's not real. I mean, there are specific things that might be conflicting, personal opinions and business interests. But when it comes to the overall structure of the system, at the very least, it's all based on national security interests. It's all based on protecting the country. Nobody has their own opinion of what the country is, but ultimately it's the justification that's used to carry out every manner of illegality and every horrible crime that you can possibly imagine. National security, protect the country, build America, make it better again, etc. And it's the same agenda that you see, like with hate crimes too. There was, I'll give you one example. There was a guy up, there's a bunch of these, but there's a guy up in Toronto. He burned a synagogue, and that's a horrible hate crime. He burned a synagogue, horrible. Turns out the guy that burned it was actually a member of the synagogue, and the police got the facts that he had used his key to open the door, and then he set it on fire. And there was another case of that where a guy stabbed himself and said, "I got stabbed because I'm Jewish." And then the police came and they investigated. They found his Apple Watch, and the Apple Watch was tracked back to him stabbing himself and claiming that he was the victim. So I'm just encouraging people to, and I'm not saying it's even a Jewish thing. I'm saying it's a corruption thing. Be very careful when powerful people like Carter Glass or powerful people like Elon Musk pretend to be for or against something, because ultimately they might actually be in favor of that very thing. Musk doesn't like the big, beautiful bill. Well, BS. Everything in that bill benefited him and his companies. So I don't really think that's true, at least to some extent or to some degree. Does that make sense? That's my viewpoint of it.
Yeah, psychological manipulation, saying one thing, meaning another thing, just like Pam
The false flag.
Bondi, just like what Pam Bondi just said. I said this one thing, but I really meant this something completely different. That's the way that they all work. They think that they're for something, they're really against it. When they're against something, they're really for it. It's like this mind fuck of constant psychological games, you know?
Which is exactly...
chess, bro. Trump's playing 4D chess, 5D chess, bro. Don't worry about it.
Oh yeah, you know how sick I am of hearing.
It's all going to be okay, bro. It's all going to be okay.
I mean, you've probably noticed too, with like with that letter of the alphabet. I don't know if you can even say it on YouTube anymore, but that letter of the alphabet, that Q thing, they're using the same talking point throughout everything that Trump's done since he took office. We'll release the Epstein files. We're going to just trust the plan. Give us a couple of weeks. You know, it's just like with Iran. Just give us 2 weeks. It's just like with COVID. Just 2 weeks. Just give us a couple of weeks. We'll release the JFK files. Give us a couple of weeks. Just trust the plan. Give them a chance. I mean, I don't know how many people I've had tell me that, Ryder. I point out all this stuff back in, I don't know, November, December. Well, wait until he takes office. You'll see. Takes office, same thing. We'll just give him another month. Just trust the plan. There is no plan. If there is a plan, it's to defraud you. It's to strip away every last bit of human dignity and respect that you have for yourself, and to plug you into Elon Musk's computer system. That's the plan. Everything else is just, as far as I'm concerned at this point, an illusion. But that's just my opinion.
You know what? I don't even care about the Epstein files. I don't even care about the JFK files. I don't care about the RFK files. And I sure as hell don't care about the Martin Luther King Jr. files. You know what file that I really care about, that I want to see, that literally nobody mentions or no one talks about in this type of conversation? That's the 9/11 files. Give us the 9/11 files.
They can't do that either, because you know who's all over. Fingerprints are all over that too. Yeah, I mean, like with Kennedy, you go back to the AZC with Kennedy and registered as a foreign agent. Look at the same thing with the JFK files that came out. I mean, among other things, it wasn't exclusive, but what was the one thing the CIA said? We don't have an objection to releasing these files. We don't care. But there's one problem: Israel. They're all over them. And it wasn't like, hey, we don't want to release these, but if we do, let's just make it very clear that Israel didn't have anything to do with it. No, it was Israel's all over them. And the implication is they're the ones that killed Kennedy, or at least participated in this plot. And of course, Jack Ruby was Jack Rubenstein, and he was a Jewish member of what? The mafia that killed Oswald. As the official story goes.
Yeah, so he was part of the mob.
Israel's all over that.
That's what we need to be. We need to create that movement. We need to hashtag 9/11 files. They're not going to give us the Epstein files. They redacted a lot of the JFK files. It's not looking good for the RFK files or the Martin Luther King Jr. files. Give us those 9/11 files. Let's make that go viral. Let's do the 9/11 thing now. Okay,
Did
let's
you know?
focus from all this other garbage. Let's go straight for the jugular. Let's go for the 9/11 files, baby. Who's with me? Who's with me? Chat, come on, chat. Let's do it. Let's get the
I'm with
9/11
you.
files going.
I'm with you, but I'll ask you a question. Do you remember last year when they released the well, I think it's almost every year they release like a new report or new video. But last year there was that video about how Saudi Arabia had all this, responsibility for 9/11. And then this year, TMZ released a documentary about Flight 23. Did you see that or hear about that?
No, I didn't.
So I just want to make this very clear. I've read the Quran, and the Quran says that as a Muslim, you are forbidden from committing suicide. From the Muslim religious point of view and their religious prescriptions, you are not allowed to eat pork. You are not allowed, this is important, you are not allowed to eat meat unless it's been blessed, which is like Christians say a prayer and Jews have kosher food, and the Muslims have a blessing for their food too. And you're not allowed to eat meat unless you get the blessing. You're definitely not allowed to eat pork. Not allowed to drink alcohol, which is why some people accuse me of being Muslim because I don't eat meat or drink alcohol. And you're also not allowed to congregate, despite what people might assume. You're not allowed to congregate with prostitutes, and which is, I mean, an interesting little detail if you relate that to Jesus hanging out with prostitutes. And now say what you want about the Quran. I'm not a supporter of the Quran. I don't advocate for the Quran, but that's what Islam in a nutshell believes outside of the prayers and the givings to charity and whatnot, which is all part of, quote, Sharia law. That's what Sharia law actually is, making sure that you do those things. However, the point is this. Those hijackers on 9/11, Ryder, what did they leave behind in their car? Remember Muhammad Atta left behind his passport in the rubble?
Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, if anybody wants to see that, type in Uncle Sam's Lucky Finds. They still have the article about that from like 20 years ago. What did they leave in the car? They left an Arabic flight manual because they were brushing up on Arabic before the takeoff, and a copy of the Quran. It was the same thing found in the New Orleans truck terrorist attack a few months ago. They sent an Israeli reporter to the guy's house, and nobody explained why they basically let a film crew in here to film it like it was a set in the middle of an investigation, but they filmed it. And what did they point out in that video? If anybody doesn't remember or never saw the video, they pointed out 3 specific things: that the man had a combination of different versions of the Quran and religious Muslim or the writings of Muhammad, the hadiths. He pointed out that he had an open Quran on his bookshelf and that he had a Muslim prayer rug. And then the video cuts to make sure that you know that Islam was behind it. Now, Islam, like I said, in the Quran says no suicide, and nowhere in the Quran does it mention you get 72 virgins. Every aspect of the 9/11 story in terms of blaming Arabs and Islam is fundamentally incorrect, particularly in regards to these being extremist fundamentalist Muslims. Now, if they were just average everyday Muslims, maybe they had a little bit to drink. Maybe they had some hookers. They spent a lot of time in Las Vegas, reportedly. That's all over the news. The thing is this: if you were a fundamentalist Muslim, not only would you not do those things, but you certainly wouldn't do those things when you're about to carry out your fundamentalist belief of killing yourself in the name of Allah to wage jihad on Western Christianity. You would have been devout, and you would have been praying, and you would have been in seclusion, not partying with strippers in Las Vegas eating pork. So that means that the whole narrative around 9/11 as an Arab Islamic terrorist attack is false. Not to mention the fact that, of course, as you know, Ryder, Osama bin Laden and the Mujahideen were financed by the Central Intelligence Agency. And as Ron Paul used to point out in Congress when he was a congressman, we created radical Islam. That's not real Islam. We created it. Yeah, sure, Islam is militaristic, but we created radical Islam. And if you want to look at the true fingerprints of 9/11, the true fingerprints of 9/11 are still in an ABC report back on around that date, where ABC News found that the Mossad had been sent to Israel, from Israel to the United States to film the towers. The police caught them in their vehicle after a woman reported the van and the dancing Israelis. And you know what they said in that van? It's the same inversion of reality. They said, "We are Israelis. We are not your problem." And this is what they're saying while they've got a box cutter and a wad of cash in the car with a video of the buildings going down. They say, "We're not your enemy. We're Israelis. We're your friends and your allies. The real enemies are the Palestinians." That's a quote. That's ABC News. The real enemies are the Palestinians. And that projectionism has been used every year like clockwork to blame 9/11 on Islam in the same way that we blamed JFK's death on, oh, it was the CIA's fault. No, CIA said we don't care. Just don't want to mention Israel. We blamed it all on Oswald. It wasn't Oswald. It was the Jewish mafia that sent Jack Ruby to kill the patsy. It's the same story repeated ad nauseum over and over again. And when people realize that this is what's happening, this is where we reach the crossroads. And I think this is the most important point. You have to be able to separate the emotional anger that comes with realizing that the same fingerprints are all over all of this stuff. You need to be able to separate that from the fact that there are decent people that also have yarmulkes on their head, that are not psychopaths, that are not blackmailers, and they do not engage in any act of terrorism. And that's not my opinion. That was the opinion of Pyotr Wrangel, the general who led the anti-Bolshevik forces in Russia. He said, it's understandable that people hate Jews in Russia, but what we need to do is we need to make it very clear that not all the people that are Jewish are guilty. They are victims of this radical, extremist, communist Marxism, just like the rest of us are. And that's all that I'm trying to say in this analysis of Jeffrey Epstein. Yes, it's Israel and the Mossad. And when people realize that, they're going to come after Jews. They're going to come after Israel and what it represents. And that's really the wrong thing to do. You need to come after the criminals, regardless of their black, white, Jewish, Christian, Muslim. That's really the key, I think, to have peace, and also at least acknowledge that things are not what they seem, and it's not, and the people that are held responsible are not the ones that should be held responsible. There's something else going on, and let's ask questions and have an open mind and not put limits on where our research will go because we're scared of what we're going to be called.
All right, let's finish up this video of old Pam Bondi here. What else she got to say? What else she got to say, Ryan? Let's see.
Agent, I have no knowledge about that. We can get back to you on that. And the minute missing from the video, we released the video showing definitively the video was not conclusive, but the evidence prior to it was showing he committed suicide. And what was on that, there was a minute that was off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night.
This is insanity right here. What she's getting ready to say is insanity. Hold on, I'm going to go back just a little bit because we need to get this whole thing in one solid flow. But this is insanity right here.
Off the counter. And what we learned from Bureau of Prisons was every night, they redo that video. It's old, from like 1999. So every night the video is reset, and every night should have the same minute missing. So we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing.
Okay, so we're using an old video recorder from the 90s in this prison, and every single night there's a minute of video that is missing. So every night of footage captured at this prison, there's a minute that is missing. And this minute just happens to be the most important minute ever in the Jeffrey Epstein suicide that's missing from this prison surveillance system.
On top of the fact that the FBI was investigating.
Would you not think that this is very important to fix? Like, if this came to your attention, Ryan, and you were the head of this prison, and you had a video surveillance system that misses a minute of footage every single night since the 90s, for 20 years, we've been using this video surveillance footage that's been missing a minute every single night for 20 years, over 20 years. Would you not immediately fix that? Would you not immediately call someone and be like, hey, There's some kind of malfunction with our video equipment here. We need to get someone here ASAP to fix this, because every single night we're noticing that the thing glitches out and we lose a minute of footage.
You would think that that would be the way that you would handle it, especially considering that even if you hadn't dealt with it, you've got Jeffrey Epstein in the cell. You'd think that they might, throw up a new camera or something. They sure waste a lot of money doing the hearings and whatnot on the stuff that they did do. They can't get a new camera though, and that's despite the fact the FBI in 2019, according to Reuters, doing a thorough investigation of why the cameras were broken and weren't working. I mean, and then on top of that, I'm sure have you seen the video where people have edited Hillary Clinton walking into the cell?
No, I haven't. I don't think. I might have.
Oh, it's if you go to X and type in missing Epstein footage.
Oh, yeah. The fake one. Yeah.
So just think about that from just the perspective of faking the whole thing. I mean, if some random person on the internet can edit Hillary Clinton, and if you glance at it, it looks pretty good, can edit Hillary Clinton walking into the jail cell as a joke, taking the video and then however they do it with AI or whatever. You don't think that the feds can do the same thing? You don't think that that the video could actually show, if there was a video, the video could actually show that they had like a hit squad come in and take him out, and then they just erase the hit squad from the video? I mean, it's just the crazy stuff that you can do with computers that I learned in film school, how you remove stuff from a video. You have markers set in the scene, and then you remove them in the post-production and the editing process. Imagine what you could do if you're the FBI or the Department of Justice. Imagine what you can do with just some random person on the internet can do with AI. And you're telling me I'm supposed to believe that video isn't edited, isn't fake? I mean, this is not just lying. This is like mocking you at the same time.
You know what you can do? You know what you can do in a minute, bro? You can do a lot of things in a minute. Like someone could literally go in there, kill him, or they could go in there, exchange him with someone else. Put them in the spot, like a previously already dead person that they strangled out in the parking lot. Throw him in the cell. Extract Epstein out, then the person that's laying there isn't even Epstein. Like, there's so many things, there's so many possibilities that can go down in a minute.
Yeah, and
she's saying here that they're not even that they're going to prove that the missing minute isn't edited because they're going to find other footage of another missing minute with other footage from the prison. I'm pretty sure that's what she says. Hold on, let's go back and let's let her finish this up here.
Every night should have the same minute missing, so we're looking for that video to release that as well, showing that a minute is missing every night. And that's it on Epstein.
That's it. It's done. It's over. Epstein thing is done and over. So they're going to find other footage of other times that the minute is missing to prove that the camera systems skip a minute every single night for the last 20 years.
No, this is a good point. I did not bring this up on my show. That's what she had said. I think it's also doubly interesting that people have said, you don't believe the 10 hours of footage they released? I don't care if it's 100 hours of footage. I'm not interested in the other footage. I'm interested in the exact moment when he died. That's what should matter. And regardless of that, the exact moment when he died was not actually recorded regardless, which means that they either edited it or it's a fake video, and that regardless, Bongino and Patel are lying because nobody saw him kill himself, even in the video that they released, whether it's real or fake. The camera wasn't inside the cell, so you don't know what happened. I mean, as far as we know, he might be in witness protection. Maybe they're telling the truth. Maybe he didn't, he wasn't killed. Maybe he, quote, killed himself. That's what they refer to it as. I think when you take someone into witness protection, it's like a multiple personality disorder, or someone that, is maybe undercover, or someone that works for, like, in the music industry. You kill off the other personality. and you become somebody new. So yeah, maybe he killed himself. He killed Jeffrey Epstein. He did. But the real actual body of Epstein with his consciousness is very much alive. They just changed his identity and his personality, and he's still living somewhere in the world right now. I'm not saying that's what happened, but in terms of the technology, technology that's available, and in terms of the things we've seen, like it's not a UFO, it's a UAP. It's not an Epstein list, it's a Maxwell list, or it doesn't exist at all. He killed himself. Well, maybe he did kill himself, just like Eminem killed off Slim Shady in one of his recent albums. He killed off one of his personalities. That doesn't mean that Eminem or Marshall Mathers is dead. And I think that kind of thing might seem silly, but that kind of thing is just another layer to this manipulation and to this psychology that's employed, especially by the Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Justice, by people that are masters of manipulation and psychology. I mean, and plus, Ryder, better than anybody probably, about Lookout Mountain, where they filmed all those nuclear bomb videos and all the fake stuff they filmed up there, where Reagan and all these people had access of the film. Was it Lookout Mountain?
Yeah, Lookout Mountain Studios. Ronald Reagan, Marilyn Monroe, Cary Grant, all these famous people in Hollywood all had top secret clearance up there, and that's the type of magic that they use. I believe that's like ritual. That's ritual magic, right? And that's the same thing with the whole JFK thing, right? You had freaking JD Tippit that looked identical to JFK.
Yes.
That was also shot and murdered in that exact same day, so that they can turn around and say that somebody named JFK actually got shot and murdered that day. That's the type of ritual magic that they use, dude.
You want to hear something interesting about ritual magic? I'm writing a new book, and I just wrote a section on General George S. Patton. And this actually relates to our topic tonight, so I'll share it with you. This is what I wrote in the book, it's a paragraph. Shortly after World War II, and after having advocated for preventative war or preemptive war against the communists, Patton wanted to destroy the Soviet Union. He said that they were worse than Germany. General Patton died on December 1945. The date of his death at the German Heidelberg Hospital came 12 days after a car accident at 9:45 a.m. on December 9th in Mannheim, Germany. Although the official report says that his car collided with a U.S. Army truck, causing a broken neck and paralysis, there are missing medical and military records, just like with JFK. And the truck driver reportedly disappeared right after that. Other passengers on the truck also disappeared or were so inebriated that they were unable, just like Princess Diana, they were unable to actually interview them. I'm kind of paraphrasing what I wrote. And in 1979, former OSS operative, forerunner to the CIA, Douglas Bazata, claimed that William Donovan, that's Wild Bill Donovan, who was the chief of the OSS, CIA, and he's a credible agent. He really was OSS. This guy, Douglas Bazata, said that he was ordered to stage the accident to make it look like a car crash so that they could execute General Patton. Now, this is really weird. So Patton survived. He was paralyzed. He broke his neck and was paralyzed. So they took him to the hospital. The hospital they took him to, so there's two different things here. There's the faking of the death, or the faking of the reason for the death, rather, to execute him. And then there's the ritual aspect of it, like you're kind of referring to. And I just learned this like an hour ago. I was reading and I was like, oh my God, there's a pattern here. So for whatever it's worth, the National World War II Museum actually says on their website that the hospital that they took him to after he was that he was dead was exactly 12 miles away from the crash site. So this means that he was taken 12 miles away. The date of his assassination or accident was December 9th, and he died 12 days later on December 21st, which is not only reverse of 12. In the month that is 12, it's also the winter solstice. And that date today aligns with Hanukkah. In 1945, the date of his death didn't align with Hanukkah, but get this. The celebration of Hanukkah fell on the 4th through the 12th of December, placing what they hoped would be probably his death at the midpoint of Hanukkah. And then because he didn't die, the midpoint of Hanukkah is like the night of the 4th into the 5th, which is 5, the 5th, essentially the 5th day. And when he died in the hospital, reportedly from cyanide from a Soviet agent, they placed the time of his death at 5:55 p.m. So it appears that the death of General Patton was not only a staged accident to assassinate him to prevent him from encouraging war with the Soviet Union. But it also had ritual overtones that had to do with the number 12, the winter solstice, and Hanukkah, just like Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, October 7th, and the recent attacks on Iran. I mean, at some point, people have to acknowledge that, like, it's so much of our history is not fake per se. It's ritual. It's ritual murders, ritual wars, and it has a religious tone to it as well. Things are not what they seem. And I don't know. I learned something like that today. And no matter how many years I've done this, Ryder, I'm still like flabbergasted by this kind of stuff. I mean, yes, I'm not really surprised about the Epstein list, but part of me is just like, are they, like, I'm over here in Japan, so I'm not as connected to Western media, even though I have the internet, of course, and I can talk to people like you. But like, I wake up and I'm in a different country and I just sit here thinking, are they really telling the American public that there's no list? This is unbelievable. I don't know what to think about it anymore. It makes me want to just kind of curl up in a ball and like, there are no good guys. That's what it feels like.
Well, then when you wrap the Virginia Giuffre stuff in all this, she just died in April, so like right before all this stuff comes out, and you know.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, she killed herself too.
Along with 3 other people that were Jeffrey Epstein accusers, also died of an accidental drug overdose as well. So it's like all these things, dude. And what this Jeffrey Epstein thing actually really reminds me of, like the footage part, reminds me of the Elisa Lam case. Are you familiar with the Elisa Lam case?
I did not think about that, but you're totally right.
At the Cecil Hotel in LA, it's very similar. Whenever the police release the footage of Elisa Lam on the elevator acting super erratic, they edited that footage too, and they sped it up. They sped up the footage and then they edited it, because whenever Elisa goes into the elevator and she hits all the buttons or whatever, it skips to where the elevator door is like half closed. So they edited out parts of that video, and then they also sped it up as well, because someone went in and literally counted every single second, and it was double the amount of seconds that were going by really quickly. So they didn't even release the real raw footage of that whole thing either.
Oh, I forgot about that case, but that's a classic. And actually, that now that you said that reminds me of I don't remember the guy's name, Hernandez, Gonzalez, I forget what his name was, but the guy that was supposedly responsible for tracking Trayvon Martin down and murdering him in Florida. Remember that story? And this guy that just like they did, actually, there's a bunch of different examples of this. So there's a couple examples. So the guy that killed Trayvon Martin, they edited the police recording. So the police had originally asked him, they said, what is the identity of the suspect? And he said, he's African-American, he's black, because they asked him. But they cut that recording so that they've got the call, 911, what's your emergency? I want to report a black man. That's how they edited the tape. It's the same exact thing with when they showed the picture of this guy. They edited it so he looked more white, even though he wasn't white, and he had an aunt that was black. The guy that killed Trayvon Martin. And it's the same thing they did with Joe Rogan. Remember Joe Rogan? They like put a green filter to make him look really sick.
Yeah.
Just like the CNN video of, we're in the Middle East, we're being bombed. They're in a green room, a studio in Atlanta, right? Or Anderson Cooper, the wind's really picking up. And he's standing in like a pool of water that the film crew put together. They're not even in a storm. It's the same thing. It's all fake. It's movie magic.
It is. That's exactly what's going on. And I'm glad that triggered my memory, because I just watched I was really familiar with the Elisa Lam case, but Netflix recently put out a documentary on it, and I watched it, and they basically talked all about, that's another really unsolved one, dude. I don't know how that happened, how she ended up in that water tank on top of the thing with the lid closed, dude. Like, freaking,
it's a creepy story.
It's a really creepy story. But yeah, Marilyn Monroe overdose, Virginia Giuffre overdose, 3 other Jeffrey Epstein victims also died of an overdose. So one of the victims jumped off of like a building and killed themselves, and two other people died in the exact same area in West Palm Beach, Florida, of a supposed drug overdose as well.
Isn't that what they did to Gary Webb as well? The news reporter that had exposed the Iran-Contra scandal, and then he decided to kill himself. I don't remember how he did it. What, did he shoot himself in the back of the head twice or something? There was a banker in New York that did. I don't remember the details of the story, Ryder, but maybe you could find it. There was a banker, I think he was in New York City, and this had to have been, I was on Dark Matter Radio, 2015 Dark Matter Radio, so it was like 10 years ago. This banker killed himself, and there was all this suspicion around him. I think they actually found a second banker dead who was an illegitimate child of the Rothschilds. It was actually like Daily Mail reported that. Okay, but this guy killed himself. He shot himself. This was the initial report. I'll never forget this. He shot himself 97 times with a nail gun in the head, and they considered that a suicide. And I'm thinking, like, man, I've like hit my finger with a hammer and I'm down. There's no way that I'm putting more than one nail in my head and not being down. And people are supposed to believe that you can shoot yourself in the back of the head with a shotgun twice. I mean, I think, or Vince Foster, they found him, that he was one of the Clinton people. They found him murdered in his car. We're supposed to believe these stories. And I think it's not just a matter of like, they can't come up with a better story. No, it's not. And it's not just gaslighting. It's making you feel helpless. We can murder members of Congress. We can murder presidents. We can murder people that are guilty of something, or people that are past. We can murder anybody in broad daylight. And then we can tell you the most ridiculous, absurd story. And not only do we expect you to believe it, but we're going to mock you as we're telling you this story, which is what Pam Bondi sounds like she's doing in that video. It sounds like a mockery. Oh, well, duh, yeah, they just didn't ever fix that camera for decades. Like, who believes that? And the answer is a lot of people, and a lot of people that don't believe it. What are you going to do about it? Nothing. There's nothing that you can do. The whole system is.
Then how we're going to prove that the footage is gone and it's not edited is we're going to show you other footage from the prison where the exact same minute is missing.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, dude, it's so stupid. But the same thing with Danny Casolaro as well in the octopus murders. He was found in West Virginia, dead as well from apparent suicide. Which there's a whole thing with Danny Casolaro, like that's a whole huge rabbit hole. But several witnesses seen another person go in and out of the room, and that was never followed up. But and then they were just like, "Oh, it was a suicide."
What did Jesse Ventura say in the X-Files? He was a man in black in that Jose Chung's from Outer Space episode. They roll into the garage and they tell the guy, "What you saw was the planet Venus. That's it. You didn't see a UFO. You saw the planet Venus."
And swamp
gas, bro. Don't they expect us to believe. Swamp gas, planet Venus. It's your imagination. You're hallucinating. I mean, it's all the same psychological tactics. And then the editing of pictures and videos. Didn't they also did that to. I used to go to some of those Ron Paul libertarian meetings when I lived in Florida, and I went to one where there was actually a debate, and then they had an event at USF, University of South Florida. And I go down there, and Ron Paul's crowd was massive. And there was like nobody there for the other candidates like Mitt Romney. It was all Ron Paul, thousands of people down the road. And the media came in, CNN, all Fox and all these other outlets. And I watched, I was physically right there. They were right next to me. They brought a bunch of people with Mitt Romney signs, and they had the camera taken down real low angle, and they had the Mitt Romney signs, and they had a guy in front telling, "Why do you like Mitt Romney?" And they used the background of all the the Ron Paul supporters as proof that it was all Mitt Romney supporters. Talk about spin. And in fact, that same time, I think it was Orlando Sentinel, one of the Orlando newspapers. It was international, or not international, excuse me, it was a national story about how Ron Paul had no supporters. Nobody cared. And I'm thinking, wait, I was at the event. I was there. I know what I saw. And what they did was they took a picture of Ron Paul at the end of the night on stage with balloons. He was kicking a balloon. And they said nobody showed up to Ron Paul's event because they took the picture after everybody left.
And that ultimately swayed the public.
Yep. And that's all that you need to do. You don't have to control every outlet. You don't have to control every bank. You don't have to control every individual. You just have to control key positions of power and key perception points, key narratives, and you've got it. That's it. That's how it's done.
It's unbelievable. But Kamala Harris too, she did that several times in her campaign as well.
Oh,
I think she was caught faking, what was that, whenever she landed that plane or whatever, and all those people were out there, that was all like fake CGI people.
Yeah, it was all CGI. Yeah, that was for sure all fake. And so was the Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez going down to the border. Turns out she's looking through a fence in like a parking lot of a supermarket or something. This is so horrible. It's just like an empty parking lot. It's all staged, PR. I mean, hey, what about that story of what was that company called? Oh, Hill and Knowlton. Remember Hill and Knowlton, the PR company?
What were they doing?
Okay, type in Hill and Knowlton, Iraq War, and look this up. Hill and Knowlton it's a PR firm. They worked for the cigarette industry, tobacco industry. They literally coached people, actors, to go before the United Nations and confirm the story of a girl named Nayira, who went to Congress and said in October of 1990, I saw the Iraqi soldiers come into the hospital with guns and they took the babies out of the incubators. Turns out that girl, I believe she was the daughter of the ambassador to Kuwait. And then her story, which was totally fabricated, she was never there to see anything of that nature if it did happen. Her story was then scripted and given to a bunch of people who gave testimony to the UN, and they were coached by a company called Hill and Knowlton in order to build military support, military support, to build support for military intervention in Iraq, the same Iraq that we had funded and financed and given chemical weapons. And then, to top it all off, Hill and Knowlton was also in charge of, guess what, Ryder? The COVID-19 coverage, which convinced us that, there's so many cases and that equates death and you got to have your mask on and social distance. The same Hill and Knowlton that sold us the fake war in the 90s. They sold us cigarettes and they sold us COVID. And that's just one well-known, well-documented example of how PR firms run things. It's all a production, from Superman to cigarettes to COVID-19 to Jeffrey Epstein. It is a literal production.
Whoa, that one almost rhymed, bro. You should do a song for that.
Maybe I'll make a hip hop song.
Do a rap for that, bro. That's perfect. That was good.
It all comes together. Hey, what did that? Remember that? Did you see that 60 Minutes piece with the Mossad agent on there about the exploding beepers?
No, but I remember the exploding beepers. People completely forgot about the exploding beepers too. That's another memory hold thing.
If you could go to X and type it in, it's very, very short. You could play it. Type in 60 Minutes Mossad. What did the guy say? World Stage, and it's 60 minutes. It's like all blacked out. He has a mask on. You can't see who he is.
You'll have to look it up on your end because I'm not logged into my X account. Every time I update the Google Chrome here, it logs me out of everything on my Google Chrome account.
Oh, okay. Do you want me to send it to you? Because you probably should play this video. It's very short.
Just pull it up on your end, and I'll pull it up over here.
Okay, I'm pulling it up right now. Okay. Here, I found the video. Let me see if I can find the exact clip. So, if for anybody that's listening, 60 Minutes Mossad World Stage, I think should bring up the video. I know I have it on my X page. I'm trying to think of what exactly to type in. This is just, it's so crazy what the guy says. 60 minutes.
Did you repost it?
Yeah, a while ago though. So I don't, here it is. Here it is. I'll repost it right now. So it's at the top of my feed. You can find it and you can play it.
Yeah, but I can't find it because I'm not logged into my X account on this Google Chrome.
Okay.
Just pull. You share screen. Just hit share screen like you would share something on your end. You use stream for your stuff, right?
Yeah, but I don't know if people could hear it. See if people can hear the audio, but I will do that. Let's see. Present and share screen. And I will share this window. All right, I shared it. All right, I don't know if you can hear it. Let's see if you can hear it. Can you hear it?
No.
No. Oh, that's unfortunate. Well, listeners can go look this up. If you want to see my X page, it's TST___radio. Or there's links on my website, thesecretteachings.info. I could also just send you the
private message me the chat. I might be able to. I don't know if I can watch it if I'm not logged in or not, though.
I got a better idea. Instead of doing that, I will do this really fast. I will pull the audio clip and I will email you the audio clip. Here, I'll do it right now. It's loading. This just, I think, summarizes the whole video that we've done tonight for a conclusion. Should have sent this to you before if I knew we were going to go here with all these great examples. Let's see, show logo, audio, radio. Then we're going to grab audio clips. Here we go. All right. Your email at Gmail or Raised by Giants Outlook.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I sent it.
Okay, should be getting it. Well, maybe I might get it. I don't know. I've tried to send you several emails in the past, and it never went through.
Well, if you can get it, that's great. If you can't, oh well. But basically, you got it. Okay, see if that loads up. And I think this summarizes the show in conclusion.
Okay, here we go. Here it is. Let me share this screen. This will be our ender for tonight. Here it is.
We create a pretend world. We are a global production company. We write the screenplay. We're the directors. We're the producers. We're the main actors. The world is our stage.
This is Mossad's old office. Its motto from Proverbs 24:6 says in so many words, wage war through deception and trickery.
There it is, folks. That's what it is.
I think that's an adequate summary.
I think that just brought everything with a nice box and a cute little bow on top. Thanks so much for coming on, Ryan. Really appreciate it, brother. Always a lovely and fascinating conversation with you. You just plugged your email and your Twitter. Can you let people know where they can find your show? Plug your website. I already have your website linked in the description there. So if people are interested. Oh, and really quickly, thank you, Sandra McDonald, for your kind and generous super sticker of $5.99. Really appreciate it. It really helps support the show. We know that YouTube does not like to pay very much for ads, so thank you for your super sticker. And we also got a channel membership, a new member, Patricia Watson. Thank you so much for becoming a channel member. I'm getting ready to release a new Ryder Ranger channel member here soon, so shout out to all the channel members out there. Thank you very much. And there's a huge back catalog of channel members only episodes. I don't make those. Anything that I post as a channel member exclusive stays a channel member exclusive. I don't make it public. So there's a whole back catalog of all those over there if you're interested in checking those out. But the new one will be releasing soon. Thank you guys very much for your support. And Ryan, let people know where they can find your show and listen to your show. And you do one every day besides the weekends. So let people know where they can find that.
Yep, Monday through Friday. tstradio.info has the social media, X, Facebook, and YouTube, and the full archive. You can also find us directly. There are links on the website. You can find us directly if you look at Spreaker, Apple, etc. TST Radio, Monday through Friday. Ads in the show, like you have ads, but if you subscribe, you get the ad-free show. And that is usually 2 hours a night, Monday through Friday.
Thank you very much, Ryan. Really appreciate it. The links to Ryan's information is in the description of this video, along with all of my links as well. Please be sure to hit the thumbs up button, help the channel in the algorithm, share, subscribe, hit the bell icon as well for notifications, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.